Hey guys, I see Mark and Brad were able to join us today. Why don't we go ahead and get started? And hopefully, Caesar and Patrick will be able to join us also. Welcome to another episode of Blockchain Banter, the Alpha Hour series. We've got Brad Nickel, who is host of Mission DeFi podcast, along with Dr. Mark Richardson, who is the project lead at CarbonDeFi. Thank you guys for joining me up here. And thank you to all of the listeners for joining us as well.
Thank you, Jen. I apologize in advance for my patchy internet. It's unfortunately out of my hands, but it seems to be stable for now.
For now, I'm going to knock on wood. I encourage everyone else to do so.
Hey, Jen, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Brad, for joining us. So I actually, we've been talking about friend tech the last couple of weeks, right? And this is kind of like the alpha. I mean, obviously, if you have crypto Twitter or you're in DeFi or following anything that's really going on, friend tech has kind of been a major talking point, especially with how things have been going and the direction that they were going the last couple of weeks. And I guess I have a question for you guys. What what do you even consider alpha? Because I'm starting to kind of question myself on this a little bit. And I guess the reason I bring it up is, did you guys see the leaked database from Friendtech?
I did not.
Yeah, sorry.
You didn't. Okay. So it was a leaked database. I'll pin it to the top here, actually. It was 101 friend.tech users linked their crypto addresses. So this was exposed. It was what I was reading. Was it their
It was Bantech, right? Bantech published it.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. Let me see. I'll pin the thing to the top, the announcement that I saw, the tweet that I saw. But it was essentially all of their email addresses and their Ethereum addresses.
Oh.
And Mark, yeah. So I guess, I saw two exploits over the weekend. There's some things going on with bridges happening, and like what actually constitutes alpha, and then where does to play when considering these sorts of alpha plays? I'm curious what you guys think about it.
First of all, Jen, I wanted to say I don't know if it's on my side, my connection, or if it's yours, but you were fading out on me a couple of times, but it may just be on my side.
No, Jen, you're fading out for me as well a little bit.
Okay, let me see. Did you guys get the gist of what I was saying? And
I got the gist of it. Let me paraphrase you. I think that you were basically asking that in light of the stuff that's happening over the last week, what should we be confident is true alpha, like something that might translate into something actionable, and what is, what should we consider to be just informing our risk management practices? Is that a good summary?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always pretty dubious. Like, I'm a very skeptical person in general, and I don't really respond to a lot of the stuff that's typically considered alpha, the kinds of things that that would actually motivate people to to either buy a cryptocurrency or mobilize a huge amount of their assets into a bridge and start using another chain and things like that. And so I guess I'm generally I'm very distrusting in that respect, and I think this is kind of the point that you're talking to. And we all know that we're in a punishing bear market right now. We've seen BTC has started to lose support, and Ethereum seems to have just printed a death cross and this kind of thing, and there are always going to be people like building in a bear market who are legitimately trying to create something of value and that is interesting. But then there are also going to be people who are, imitating people who are doing that. And my advice is always the same, which is that bridges are very bad, right? There's no such thing as a trustworthy bridge infrastructure, in my opinion. I think the one that Bancor built way back in the day over to EOS, I think, is the longest standing unexploited bridge in the ecosystem. But it's because it has like very specific security protocols in place to limit the amount of value that it can move around, which makes it very difficult, hopefully impossible to exploit. And I think those kinds of security practices aren't very conducive to the sorts of narratives that projects, especially bridge projects and other chains, want to foster, right? And so I do think that in order to be able to advertise the types of user traction statistics and other vanity metrics that that these projects are offering up as alpha, they do tend to, like, the first thing that gets sacrificed is security, and if anything, the last week is testament to that.
Yeah, I can't do anything but completely agree with that. And in terms of Friendtech itself, I actually started to sign up for it and just felt things just didn't feel right to me. And so I didn't actually go any further than kind of the initial starting setup. And so I haven't done anything to claim anything, deposit anything, or done anything over there. And so I haven't really experienced what's going on with it. But I just felt like a little bit leery of it. And when things are hyped up as much as that has been, I'm even more so. And I think there's just a lot of ways for people to get burned there. It doesn't feel like there's any long-term true value from what they're doing, but I'm not privy to where the roadmap's going or anything else. So I can't say a lot about that. In terms of alpha, you know, I think there's a lot of ways to define what alpha means to people. Obviously, I think most people think of it as what is the what are some really great opportunities for making money, and how can you utilize those and take advantage of them, and what's kind of the inside scoop on things we haven't heard about before. I think is kind of the general public kind of feeling about alpha. And I often find that the things that I see as being alpha are similar to this thing, in that I'm nervous about security. I'm nervous about how well tested and audited a particular new protocol may be, or new opportunities may be. We have a history in DeFi of getting in early and getting out quick, because otherwise you're going to be the person that gets left holding the bag, as they say. And so for me, I have kind of been moving towards more of looking at what new tech is coming and what people are kind of innovating on, without necessarily just jumping in myself into investing right away in a lot of things. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's where I am.
No, it does. I'm genuinely curious what, everyone considers to be the alpha, And then again, of course, considering what's been going on recently, where we kind of draw that line in terms of the moves that we're making. Will, and then Ceazor, if you guys want to. First of all, I'm glad that you guys were able to join us. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, and first off, sorry for being late. It's really inconsiderate of everyone's time if I have to show up, show up a few minutes late. Anyway, to Mark's point, one thing have learned a ton from Mark was this. It's a perspective of looking at everything through the lens of, like, how could somebody use this to hurt you? And so as much as I get excited about certain tech, it's really a great way to look at new features and innovations of, like, well, how could somebody use this to exploit you? Or it's a new frame, but it definitely comes about in the bear market. And I think it's really important. The alpha in that sense, and what I hope to add here is that there's they there's a lot of alpha in not getting caught up in something and then losing money. And so, like, getting caught up in a trend or a scam or something like that, and being more aware of the environment that we find ourselves in, and which is just, it's a lot. I mean, the kind of scam environment's kind of always with us, but like really present during bear markets. So to his point about the bridges and stuff, like, it is there's this inclination to, like, more desperation to make a profit now, because we've just been getting our ass kicked. for 18 months or whatever. But it's fighting that. It's like, look, it's almost profitable to do nothing. It's almost better. It feels like you're doing nothing, but it's like you're preventing yourself from taking unnecessary risks that ultimately may realize themselves. And so like these spaces, I hope people take away from from Mark, and like of learning how to use that perspective of being more skeptical is good here, because this is a very new space. There's a lot of newness and there's a lot of hype, and it's like that mix is very, it's very potent. Because you see people quote getting rich, but you don't know that, and you don't know people's positions. You don't know a lot of details, and so in that sense, like that's the alpha I hope to offer too, is just kind of more of a sober take of like, hey, maybe somebody listening to this decides not to jump onto some trend and saves them thousands of dollars. Like that'd be great. I think that that'd be a good addition to the space.
Ceazor, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm late as well. I'm trying my best. I've finally got a desk, so I'm at my computer. But anyhow, first thing I want to mention is that I really like the Frax bridge. It's really restrictive. Takes a day to bridge. They have a lot of safeguards. So I do have a video if you want to check it out. Maybe I'll try to stick it in here. It's good. So it's more safe than, of course, it's still centralized in the sense that, the team is the ones who make the choices whether or not, something's fishy or something like that. And then there's also like things like the blockchain style bridges, which are a little less centralized than the ones that we had in the past, right? Like Axlar and stuff like this. So you can look at those too if you're looking for a better bridge experience in the sense of like safety and kind of being a little bit less exploitable. But I'm not 100% sure that they're not going to get exploited ever. You know what I mean? But it's still they're thinking about the problems before they built these new bridges. So you can look at those. But I wanted to talk about FriendTech as well. I kind of, if you try to think of it, I try to think of it this way. Okay, like it's the way I'm like thinking, I'm still outside the loop a little bit, but the way I'm kind of thinking about it is it's just it's like the step up from meme coins. So instead of like, oh, send ETH to Ben.eth and hope he mints a token, hope he makes an LP, it's a little less that, right? So like if you look at what Ben did when everybody sent him all that ETH and he finally minted a token, then he took some of that ETH and put it with all of the token instead of all of it, instead of all in, right? So things like this can't happen with FriendTech, but I still think it's super like, what's the point? Like it's a meme coin to me, and that's not investing, but it's still gonna have narrative, it's still gonna have hype, and it's still gonna pump. So I always say to like people like, like even like you might be idealistic, but there might still be an opportunity to make some money, but you really have to try to like delegate, like separate your risk out. Like that's why I use these different wallets as personas. I've said it many times. I might have a high risk wallet that I might play some of these tokens, and then I have like my major wallets that I'm not going anywhere near this kind of stuff, right? Because they're very volatile, and if it gets exploited, then everything just gonna dump to zero. And if you're not around, like some of us who are like 24/7 DeFi, always watching the Twitter, if you're not around, you're gonna wake up and it's gonna be worthless. So it's like like the old style stocks where it's just penny stocks. Like think of it like that, like worthless. Nothing, probably gonna do nothing. And I haven't seen any of these influencers actually make their share tokens do anything, like to give any benefits or actually have a reason to buy them, like the actual utility. But maybe somebody, like I said, I just got my desk set up yesterday, so I haven't been able to dig even. I haven't even opened up the app, the FriendTech app, and looked inside, and I'm kind of hesitant to do so. But yeah, like so, maybe someone can tell me: is there anybody who's taken FriendTech and actually taken their share tokens and given it some utility?
I think what Patrick was saying last week, and just so everybody's clear, I'm not looking to harp on FriendTech. It was more just because this has been such a strong narrative over the last couple of weeks, and because of, what I was reading this morning in terms of, your email addresses being leaked and Ethereum, your wallet addresses, and essentially signing the right for them to post on your behalf as well. When that all caught my eye, it was like I wanted to kind of shift how our normal conversations or how our conversations had been going to more of this sort of a focus. Patrick was saying last week that he's seeing some that are kind of speaking to adding utility, but at the moment I haven't actually really seen anything of it. I think the most I've seen, Ceazor, was someone who charges, I think it was like $3,000 for an hour meeting, but you can buy some of his tokens and get a meeting for less because of what it's valued at the moment. But that was pretty much the extent of what I have seen personally.
booking. Go ahead, Ceazor.
I've also seen we on Velocimeter on base. There's a lot of these since I've been gone, I've come back and I've seen like a whole bunch of these friend techs have been wrapped to ERC20 and they're creating LPs with them. So that's maybe quasi utility, but not really, right? It's really on the edge, right, of that. So, but yeah, I don't know, maybe when the first ERC20 contract was deployed and it was just this new thing, then people started, using it, and then there was money going through it, and then people were incentivized to think, oh, what can we do with these ERC20 tokens? And then they started, oh, let's make LPs, and then they make LPs, an AMA, a DEX, and then innovation follows money, right? So that might be the idea here, it might actually produce some utility and some use case, but I'm still quite hesitant to make my own or even bother with this. And what you've just said about my email being leaked and stuff, this kind of stuff sucks, right?
I think that it is worth pointing out that there is a legitimate, business case behind, at least conceptually, right, some of these ideas. We know that there is a thriving business of people that have dedicated followers and they have really good engagement. And we treat influencers like it's a sort of a new thing, but it's kind of an old skill just being applied to a new technology, which is the social media phenomenon. But people have always been interested in leveraging their influence to make a business out of it. The thing that I find it just doesn't really fit is that investing in an influencer, if they have these tokens, it's not clear to me exactly what that monetization is looking like, what you're actually investing in. So for example, I get a huge number of requests or pitches, decks from people that do orchestrate these kinds of social media campaigns. And in general, the business model there is they will they promise to reach a certain number of users, right? There are all of these kind of KOLs and things that they promise to provide, and this whatever it's advertising like anything else, right? In a way, the reason or the motivation for developing a popular TV show right back in the 90s and so forth wasn't because you want people to consume the TV show. It's because you want to hold their attention for a few minutes while you show them Coca-Cola advertisements, and Coca-Cola is going to pay you for the influence and audience that you're planning on reaching. There is nothing controversial, in my view, about these kinds of business models, but tokenizing them, I have yet to see how someone is going to be able to connect these two dots. For example, one of the ways that you could easily do it is say that, all of, if you want me to write a thread for you, or if you want me to create some YouTube content or something like that, the only payment I accept is in my own ERC20 token. And so if someone is very popular, then demand for their services is going to mean that, that token is bought up and used to essentially pay that person. But then, like, what are they going to do with that token, right? If I'm paying someone to create content for me, and I give them their own ERC20 token back, the only avenue that they have is to then sell that back on the liquidity pool, for example. Now, it's not necessarily a bad business model, right? You could say that someone buying these tokens when they're cheap is basically speculating on how popular this influencer is going to be in the future. And so you could essentially buy their influence cheap and then sell it to someone else in the future who actually has a utility for it, right? Who actually wants that person to perform that task for them. But I still don't see the necessity or the how the tokenization of it actually benefits that exchange. I think most people, when they send me their decks, it's usually quoted in like US dollars, not even in a stable token, right? There's a business agreement that's going to be signed and this kind of thing. I think that out of all of the possible use cases for cryptocurrency, I don't like this is the one that I feel is the least aligned with the attention that it's received.
Will, go ahead.
I was just laughing, like you could see that business model going sideways where somebody, they're like, I'll take payment in my token. And like you're saying, they've got to, okay, how do they convert that into what another currency? They're like, they put it back in the LP pool. But it's funny to think of them crashing their token, somebody buying up a bunch of it, and then that person finding themselves at some kid's birthday party, like, dude, somebody bought like 1 million of my tokens, and I have to be here. Like, it just can go completely sideways. It's just kind of funny to me.
Yeah, or even like just the like imagine that they are speaking to a client who's like, no, like I'm not gonna, I'm not on that chain or whatever. Can I just pay you in US dollars? And what are they forced to do? Like buy their own token? Like do they even support business transactions that aren't tokenized the way that they advertise it? Because in a way, that's like restricting, that's putting barriers between you and your demographic, right? It could be that there are going to be a bunch of clients that would prefer to just, for legal reasons or accounting reasons or whatever, transact in fiat because it's just like the way that most organizations are set up. And so you're either going to deny them, the business, or you're going to then take the money that they send to your bank account and then promise the people that have invested in your token that all of the money that goes through that account is dedicated to buying back this ERC20 token or something. But then even at the end of that transaction, like, what do you do, right? If the point of being paid in your own token was so that you could swap it back on your own pool, then performing that transaction is the same as not performing it. You either buy your own token and then sell it back to yourself to, for ETH or USDC or whatever it's paired with, or you just keep the money in your bank account. It's just I just don't understand specifically like what the use case is, because it seems to be making a business that runs well run a lot worse.
It's like a step towards barter. It's just you're choosing something that has a worse exchange rate and just liquidity and all this. And it's funny though. I hope it goes sideways for somebody just so I can see that. But not really. I don't wish any ill on anybody, but it is just funny. It's like you can see how that can go wrong.
Ceazor, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a lot of experience with this actually, like being an influencer in a sense myself. I get a lot of DMs as well, like, hey, do you want to collaborate on a video? And like, I'm kind of idealistic in it. Like, I believe that, like, if I make a video on something and I like it and I'm bullish on it, I shouldn't need to get paid. I should invest in the video, in the product. Then I can ride the hype with myself. Like, if it's truly a good thing, then I will maybe invest in it and make money. And I sometimes even say to KOLs, like, well, instead of me paying you, how about you just buy the token? And if you do have the impact that you're saying you have, then you will make more money. You'll make lots of money. But they want it risk-free, right? So they just want, you pay me US dollars worth of what, ETH or USDC or Tether or something like that, and then I'll shill it for you and then I'll forget about it. That's kind of what most of these influencers want. And I think this tech might be more appealing to them than it is to someone who's idealistic. But what you were saying about paying in the token for these services, we tried, I have this thing called Creator DAO. It's kind of dead now because it was, we launched it during the bull market. It was kind of a way for content creators to use a DAO to kind of make content for protocols and stuff like that. And I've been like, I was able to help a lot of like artists and people who are like, it's very hard for them to monetize their skills in crypto. I was able to do this and help them to kind of make money in a way that they don't have all the KOLs, all the influencers don't need to all talk to the protocol. Like the protocol would talk to Creator DAO, the manager, project manager, and the project manager would then delegate all the work to the people who want to do the work, right? But we tried to convert it to buy in Creator token. So like if you wanted to pay, you had to pay with Creator token, and we even gave discounts. And people were just, oh, can I just pay in USDC? Can I just pay in USDC? Because they don't want to go through the problem of buying the token, holding the token, sending it became kind of like what Mark was saying, like people want to usually, the influencers usually want to make money and not, get paid in a token that they need to speculate on, that they're investing in. So even these the people in Creator DAO wouldn't accept like your token. Like let's say Bancor wanted a video or a couple videos and a Twitter thread and blah, 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 like a package, and you paid in BNT tokens. Then all of the influencers are like, sell the BNT token, pay me USDC. So like you're saying, like it's just gonna be you're just adding steps and trading fees to the transaction for no reason. Like, because the people on the video side, they want US dollars. The people on the customer has US dollars, and you're just like adding a whole bunch of complexity in the middle for no real reason, right? Except to add speculation to outside governance token like speculators.
I feel like this is the real alpha, right? Which is that, it's okay to be, excited for the kinds of things that blockchain technology offers. And there are a lot of things that I think blockchain technology is going to disrupt, right? I would say that it hasn't yet started. And I know that Jen wanted to discuss like real world assets on this call as well. So maybe it's a good segue. But I think that at the end of the day, like investing is investing. It doesn't matter if it's on blockchains or, in DeFi or GameFi or whatever it happens to be. But the thing that you should be driving, your, I guess that the thing that you should be the most enthusiastic about, right? When someone says, "Hey, I've got this alpha," or you're following some story or whatever it happens to be, wherever you're getting your information on. At the end of whatever cycle that you're going through in your head, it's important to stand back and think, does this actually make anything better? Like, or is this just is this just a part of another narrative? And that's okay. Like, we speak to narrative traders all the time, and you'll hear, like Crypto Choreo, who is, frequently on our, on the spaces with us, speak to the dashboard and things that he's created. And it's a totally legitimate thing to trade. But I think that this is coming back to the point that Ceazor was making, and even Brad earlier on, which is that you can like profit from these things short term. But just remember that if you're not convinced that the actual use case makes sense, so if the alpha is just for the purpose of narrative, then make your decisions commensurate with that realization. I think like this is the probably the longest-winded discussion that we've had to answer what was, I think, a very simple question that Jen posed to us 30 minutes ago. But I think that this is the answer that we need, which is, just know what you're doing. And if something is for a short-term speculative bet, then let it be that. But if the alpha is promising, a revolution in the way that, that influencers are going to monetize their businesses, it's okay to observe that with a healthy dose of skepticism and even wait, right, to see if it's even delivered on, because it's not new, right? We had when Ceazor was talking about the Creator DAO thing, it reminded me a lot of this very early project called Electrum, which was like Fiverr, but instead of paying people with credit cards, you have to pay them with this Electro token. And I remember actually using it. Like I did. Commission some stuff from people like way back when. And what was interesting is that, occasionally it was very difficult to organize payments, and they'd be like, you know what, just go over to my Fiverr account and we'll just settle it there. So it's just, it's okay to speculate on these things, but if the alpha is that this thing's going to go 1,000x over the next 10 years or something, a healthy dose of skepticism, I think, is the best alpha that you're going to get from me during this call.
Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, I don't want to drag this out much longer, but one of the things I talk about a lot lately is when I'm advising projects or just generally commenting on things is I'm really trying to force people to first justify a token and its existence. Because frankly, I think well, maybe not everyone would agree, but I'm not sure everybody needs a token. And I'm not sure, well, I'm confident not everyone needs a token. Probably, 95% plus of the projects in this space don't need a token. Secondarily, I think this speaks to something else that kind of speaks to the nature of everything in this space, and that is we don't have any trading on fundamentals beyond maybe Bitcoin and Ethereum. Almost everything else in this space is speculative trading, and that doesn't mean that there aren't projects or protocols or chains that shouldn't have some fundamental analysis tied to them. But from a trading perspective, there are very few things that you can kind of say, you know what, this is a long-term play. This is something that's going to be around a long time, and it's something that I can count on increasing in value because of A, B, C, and D. And I think we've kind of reached that point where, for me personally, every time a project launches that has a new token, if I can't see any specifically tied utility to some level of innovation or development in that protocol that requires that token to be there, I'm already skeptical, and I'm already saying, okay, do I want to jump in and play this speculation game yet again in my life, or am I really looking for things that are going to earn me longer term money, that are going to be staking oriented, for say staking on Ethereum and earning more Ethereum because I believe fundamentally it'll go up in value long term, or do I want to waste my time trying to play these games and hope I make money on them? So anyway,
That's a really great point, Brad. Like to both you and Mark's point, there's this like it's you got to kind of differentiate what your objectives are and versus what you want. And so like what I mean is you'll hear a lot with whether a new project or something somebody owns, like, oh, this is an investment and it has utility and it's promising, great team, blah blah blah. But if that token ran, I don't know, 50%, they would sell it immediately. And it's like, oh, you didn't believe that at all. You just bought it for speculative purposes. You took a bet and the bet paid off. But there's a lot of the kind of noise out there of like you're saying, Brad, just that, you know, I share your skepticism. Like I'm to a point where I need a project to actually be out in the wild for at least like a couple of years. And I think that adds to Ethereum's success. It's just been tested by time. And, I we're just the whole space is new, but there's enough that have crossed that Rubicon that have really been tested by time. You could see it on the back end. You could see, like, if you look at what were really popular projects like 5 years ago and how many of those still exist, or at least share that level of success. And it's not many. And so it gets into your fundamental point, Brad, of that analysis I hope it's finding a footing. It's very difficult. I've tried it. But you can really only do it with ones that have a history, like to have, you know, actually true utility, because otherwise you're just like, you're completely speculating. So, and we'll get there.
And I'm not opposed to speculation. Don't get me wrong. I'm an owner in a company that makes tools for people that speculate all the time, right? So I certainly have made money speculating on where prices are going to go. I prefer to do that in an algorithmic way as opposed to gut feelings or trying to get any fundamental analysis in the picture. But yeah, totally agree with you, man. It's. I think we're at that stage where hopefully the next phase is some maturing of how things are done.
Well, and this kind of goes back to, something, Mark, you had mentioned Crypto Choreo. He's on our Tuesday trading crypto calls with Keith Allen, who is Brad's partner actually in Material Indicators, or co-founders. But I pinned his Dune dashboard up to the top, and he says it all the time, and so does Keith, and you do as well. There is a difference between trading and investing. And I think that's one of the key things when you're going into any one of these moves. Like Ceazor, you were saying, you go as far as having separate wallets for, depending on how you view these different projects that you might be either speculating on or investing in, or trading. But Mark, you mentioned earlier, I did want to speak about real world assets. We only have about, 15 minutes left on this call, so I'm not sure we'll really be able to. But you were saying that for all of the use cases for cryptocurrency and for blockchain technology, this is probably one of the, I'm sorry, and I'm paraphrasing here, the weakest, maybe not strongest sort of use cases that we're seeing, right? Like we're just not quite there yet.
Yeah, and it's okay for the industry to experiment with stuff. Like I am, I'm the leader of a DeFi project. It's I am absolutely in support of people experimenting with different ways of using blockchains and finding business use cases for them. But yeah, I think that the stuff that we see in Friendtech, I just don't think is really thought out. I think it's the stuff that is I think relying on the culture of crypto to bring it value, right? The people want to speculate is the problem. It would be better if there was I'm with Brad here, by the way. Like there's absolutely nothing wrong with trading speculatively, but it would be nice to have stuff to speculate on where we weren't just 100% reliant on other people speculating, right? If there was something where someone is getting something, like happy to pay money in order to receive something that they asked for or that they wanted to do, right? This is the difference where, speculating on stuff that is just there to be speculated on, I think is disappointing, right? That we're so late in the game in blockchains, and still this is the most popular use case for the technology that's being developed.
Ceazor, go ahead.
Yeah, if to stick on the theme of real world assets, if you think about it this way, like this Friendtech is in a sense a real world asset. Like if it's being used, like let's say I were to create a friend share token, and you could then have talks with me, and I would then give you advice, maybe not financial advice, but like help you walk through the steps of DeFi or something like this, right? So I would be giving you a real world asset. Like it might not be like a physical asset, but it is a service. It's a goods or service, so a service, right? So it is a real world asset in this sense. It could be, but I'm more inclined to like think about like a blockchain because it's a little bit of extra steps. So I'd rather have it be used to like obtain or hold like real world assets instead of like used to just pay for real world services. So I kind of like this idea, but the other thing I was thinking about while you guys were talking was that like all of this stuff, like all this speculation, innovation, like speculative, innovative kind of tech building also helps to give Ethereum its use case. So for us to kind of promote it in a sense, like, hesitantly, like do your own research, be safe, manage your risk and all that. But it also helps us to give Ethereum itself its own kind of, its own, like maybe not Ethereum, but all the blockchain technologies, whichever chain you want. It helps us to give those kind of more traffic because we're testing new technology, we're building on the blockchain, and it's being, we're paying gas, right? So I kind of like the idea of kind of promoting it somewhat, or at least kind of having these narratives and kind of going with them a little bit, but you have to like manage your risk in however you can do so, and that's hard for some new people. Like there's this Twitter that's called Coinfessions, and it's just always like oh, I got wrecked. I put this, I did this, I did something stupid. I mortgaged my house, I bought some fucking NFTs, and I'm down 90%. Stuff like this, right? And that's the kind of stuff that really hurts us in the long run, because now that person would never use blockchain technology again. He's just like, I want to go back to my banks where they're not going to rug me, or I'm not going to be down 90% when I wake up and stuff like this. So I would just be very careful about what you put, where you put your money, and then also how you promote. But you should also kind of push a little bit at the innovation front, but just make sure you're separating that so people understand what the reasoning for why you're promoting those.
Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, so I agree with everything that Ceazor said, and I want to reiterate that I'm not sort of anti-experimentation or innovation in the space. I think these things are terrific. If we're talking about real-world assets, agreed that the the influencer stuff in a way is a real-world asset, because it's a literal service that people get value out of, or to trying to achieve some goal, right? It's advertising. Obviously, it's one of the world's largest industries. I fully expect that we will find a way to implement it on a blockchain that makes sense for everyone involved. I wanted to it is the alpha call, so I've got some sort of some alpha that's kind of leaning towards real world real world assets utilization and that kind of thing. I recently had a call with a project that I really like called U308, which is the chemical formula for triuranium octoxide, which is the yellow cake, right? It's the material that's used in nuclear power plants, for example. And this is one of the what's weird about fissile material markets is that they're very obscure, right? In order to accept delivery on something like yellow cake, you either need to be a literal member of an organization that belongs to the government, or one of its research institutions. But the price of yellow cake is something that people really do want to speculate on, and it's very, very difficult to get access to those markets. And so here's a project that said, what, fuck it, we'll just tokenize the thing. We'll buy 20,000 pounds or something of yellow cake, distribute the ERC20 token. They've even got their regulation side sort of figured out, so that if anyone really does want to actually accept delivery on the material that it represents, they can do so. And this is really exciting, because there are people who would absolutely not want to, to accept delivery. I don't know about you guys, but I don't really want to have a whole bunch of uranium stockpiled at my house. But that doesn't mean that that's not a market that people might want to have access to. We know that, for example, the rate of uranium extraction, from the Earth's crust is very, very small compared to its rate of consumption. And things like nuclear power aren't going anywhere anytime soon. And I consider this to be actually the most one of the most compelling use cases for blockchains, because that entire supply chain can actually benefit. You have companies at one side, very large organizations that actually do need to, call people up on the phone, mining companies, for example, and try and get a quote for the material that they need in order to do business. And they're doing that so that they can create electricity, and people are buying that electricity because they like, watching Netflix and, running Ethereum. And it's this type of thing. That's the stuff that I'm really interested in, where we have created systems in blockchains that actually do work pretty well. The idea of the AMM is flawed in some respects, but in being able to create continuous liquidity and an infinite enumeration of prices for things is pretty helpful when you've got a market that you actually cannot really speculate on, even though you might be extremely enthusiastic about the future value of that asset. And this type of thing, right, where it's actually going to benefit the people that are mining the stuff out of the ground. It's going to benefit the people that are wanting to buy it from an open and free market. And it's going to benefit the people in between that are actually going to, interact with that market and keep it liquid for the for the purpose of speculation. That's a totally legitimate use case. And in my view here, coming back to the points that I made earlier, you're speculating on something not because you think other people are speculating on it, but because you recognize, right, that people do need nuclear power, and it's it's a market that's extremely volatile, right? The rate of production of uranium is fairly unpredictable, and people that are paying attention to it, who know that we're going to have like a really hot summer or a really cold winter or something, might want to speculate on what the price of electricity is going to do and what that might, how that might impact the price of the raw material that's used to produce it. This is a really exciting, real world asset tokenization, and it's shocking, right, and disappointing that these kinds of things that are actually going to change or could potentially change the way that very important segments of society operate are sort of, I don't want to say swept under the rug, but they don't get nearly the attention they deserve. Whereas, someone who is, developing Frentech and is promising to, to mint a token and share their profits with everyone is the thing that people get excited about. It's just, it's not what I saw in blockchain when I, joined the space. And, I'm hoping that there are others out there like me that are looking for actual value, right, in the way that, in actually changing the way that things operate. And here's an example. We've got an example. Let's make it, let's make it known, right, that things are happening in blockchain that are actually important.
Ceazor, go ahead.
Yeah, this is interesting. It sounds a lot like even the gold stablecoin that we've had for quite some time, like Paxos Gold. Like one of the things I wanted to say about is what you're saying about allowing people to speculate on this what did you call it, yellow mud or whatever, this uranium, right? What this can also do is it'll incentivize the mining companies to actually to do a better job, because they'll be like, oh, I can sell uranium. The price is going up because more people are, let's say, speculating on buying it. Like the more money that goes into that market, the more stable that less volatile that price will be. But at first it will pump the price a little bit because money's coming in, right? And then those companies will then be able to be more profitable, probably by selling through the liquidity pool instead of selling only to when the buyers, like it's kind of like a battery. Like it allows that money to be extracted when the prices are high for the distributors, and then when the prices come down because of the speculating, the market decides, oh, it's too hot, and they start selling, the price comes down, and now they use the consumer, which is the let's say the power plant, they need the uranium, they can buy it cheaper, right? So it allows some players in there to kind of play the market and get cheaper or higher prices for their products or services. And then it's because of the AMA that's there that allows this, like I always see people like, I'm trying to sell a house, trying to sell an NFT, and you need to find somebody to buy it. It's very hard. Whereas an AMA, like I really take for granted how easy it is for me to dump tokens or buy tokens. Like if you try to do it through the bank, even the bank has to find somebody to buy your stock or to sell you a stock through those, like they're pretty streamlined now, but at the same time, it takes a day or two. It's not instantaneous. So I really think, these kinds of world world assets are interesting, and maybe the people who speculate on them won't be, massive amounts of crypto Twitter people, right? But more like just like savvy people in the field. Like I work at the power plant, so I have a kind of inside knowledge a little bit, and I'm going to be like, oh, our stockpiles are getting low, so I'm going to buy the token now. and then I know the company's going to buy it later. So then they buy. No, that I don't know how legal that is, but I would rather have like the employees kind of know things and be able to speculate on these things a little bit. I'm not sure how legal that is. Probably in America, you go to jail
No,
for
it's
this.
legal. That's actually perfectly legal. And more than that, the fact that there's even a market to look at is what's missing, right? Like at the moment, this is all sort of done with like literal sort of handshake kind of deals. And it's even difficult for, like you've pointed out, the suppliers. They don't necessarily know like what a fair price point is, right? It's one of the things that keeps that market so unstable, so unhealthy.
Will, go ahead.
Real quick, one thing. Every time I hear yellow cake, I think of the Chappelle Show. Just like don't drop that shit. Second, the key thing that that crypto could really help on, and y'all have really honed in on it. It it creates an order book for very illiquid assets. And so like I'm coming from the real estate side, which very similar to what you're describing, Mark. Like a lot of these deals are just handshake, and it's just kind of you make some phone calls and you're like, what did this sell for? And the thing is, like, there is an incentive to keep a lot of this data private, which crypto has the technology to keep data private while also giving you an idea of like how liquid the market is and where the price point is. And that's where I think on the real world asset side, this is really could make the world better on a number of assets. It's just like we're just floating around. Like I work in a very liquid market, and it's amazing to me that things hold together so well, but there's so much leverage involved. But that's where I really hope this is moving. And I think the first iteration of that is stable coins. And it's like there's a signal there that like that's addressing a need. And I'm pretty confident it's going to spider out into these assets because it's just like it's so needed, but and it's outside of the speculative use in the way I'm speculation in terms of crypto, like speculation like on cocaine. Like this is more, it really provides a utility and it really solves a problem, which has these like huge benefits. Like, could you imagine, like you're talking about with in energy, of being able to like adequately price these materials and get it to the right people who want it? And then like what that does to the energy markets, how it improves everyone's lives. And if in terms of real estate or take your other pick of asset, like what if it was just liquid and so that the price, like the market was set, like the market forces could really work its magic. And it's like, then you have like development going in the right places, and then you have lending correct. And that's the scariest part about real estate. It's like you're lending against very liquid stuff, and it's like you better hope that you're right. But this would really help a tremendous amount across a bunch of asset classes.
Brad, go ahead.
Yeah, real quickly. I do know that I don't know how many of you are familiar with Canto, and disclaimer: I'm an advisor to the biz dev group over there, and I'm staking and stacking Canto. But they're making a big push on the real world asset side. There's a T-bills company, Fortunify, launching on there, and they're working on a number of other projects that are tied to that. Um, and on the simpler side, I'm actually working with some.
Oh, Brad, you cut out
I
for
had a
me.
call.
Did he only cut out?
Yeah, I had a call come in. Sorry about that. Thought I had it on Do Not Disturb. Um, the We're working on a project, and this is, like I said, it's a very simplified model, but we're working with a company in the home services industry who's doing a raise, and we're doing the raise, as both an equity play and a profit sharing play. And the people who are going to invest in the fund that's investing into the company will be holding their investment in NFTs. It's US based, so obviously we have to go through the whole accredited stuff and everything else. But those will be, NFTs that can be sold to other accredited investors in the space. And we expect that there's a potential for markets to be built around that, for lending and those kinds of things. Right now, it's just an experiment with a company we think has a lot of value. But I think the interesting thing is probably about 50% of the investors coming into this will be people that have never had a wallet or had an NFT. And so this is also something that I think allows people to see value that are not necessarily crypto or DeFi native. They can start seeing the potential for managing investments, for exchanging investments, transferring and accruing, profits on chain. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to exploit kind of the real world assets market, do simple things, do more complex things. I love I like the uranium thing a lot, but I think we'll see more and more of that as time goes by here.
Yeah, I hope so. And I think that, the more that we can do, especially like on this alpha call and wherever other conversations that we're present in, to let people know that there are these things. Like, why is like this company that you're advising and doing the raise for sounds fucking phenomenal. And it's just I hope you're as disappointed as I am that it's the friend techs of the space that get all of the attention, when there's people that are actually putting together stuff that's meaningful.
Completely agree.
Well, thank you guys so much. We are at the top of the hour. Ceazor, I found the tweet that you had mentioned about the Frax bridge. So I posted that to the top. I also pinned, like I mentioned earlier, Crypto Corio's Dune Analytics dashboard. So if you are interested in narratives and things, have a look at that. He is a research scientist, data scientist that has done an immense amount of work and put this all into the Dune and made it available for everyone to look at. I also pinned to the top a little bit about CarbonDeFi. Mark, we mentioned it in the beginning. You're the project lead for CarbonDeFi. And for those who would like to know about it, I recommend taking a look at the pin tweet and at the Twitter. It's CarbonDeFi.xyz, along with the announcement for our call tomorrow. I had spoken about Keith and Crypto Corio and Mark being on a call tomorrow. It's our trading crypto call. It's 1 hour earlier than our call was today, so 4 p.m. UTC. To set your reminders. We're also on link 3, so you can add it straight to your calendar there. Thank you guys again so much for joining. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did, and thank you to the listeners for all, for coming out.
Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Jen. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.